In yesterday's video, we discussed that there are at least three main factions inside the US government fighting for how we should be doing our, whatever you want to call it, deglobalization, new supply chains, whatever you want to call it, all right? And they were the economic nationalists, which believes in tariffs and forever for everybody and forever. Okay. Then you have the, let's call them the defense, the war party. They think we need to up our defense. And then third, you have the transactionalists. That's what they're calling them. Okay. So um, and it looks like, given the news that were coming out of Malaysia, that the what we call now the China hawks, which would be number one, the economic nationalists, are definitely I don't know, on the outs. I don't know what the right terminology is. Let's put it this way: they're not winning. As you can see, yesterday an article came out that Trump is poised to end Washington's decade of the China hawks. And you can read this. The Washington Post, they say, dryly noted that a significant de escalation, no kidding. Um, in fact, is if you take this from 2016 to Liberation Day, that whole 9, 10 years is now gone. Okay. And for people new to the game, Robert Lighthizer, he was the first like major China hawk. I mean, even today, I think it was 2 weeks ago. They do a Friday interview in the Financial Times. It was on Lexinger, and he was like, still the same, basically, take China out any way we can. All right. And but they say that this group is holding their tongues in public because, as we all know, Trump does not really handle pushback very well. So what's going on in these talks that the China hawks are on their heels? We'll put it not over yet. We'll see what happens. Okay. But they say Beijing has gone nuclear, and they demand will grow because Trump hasn't pushed back as of yet. China's rare earth export control is the nuclear option, in my personal opinion. For China to remove a measure like this, it needs more than just some minor action removing the 50% rule, and the U.S. needs to drop some high-tech restrictions. So this 50% rule, this is the next period that just happened, right? Because they're 50%, we say we're going to block them from sending the chips. Unfortunately, the 110 billion chips a year that Nexperia sends out funds the auto industry in the United States and in Europe, plus our medical industry, plus some other industries where there are at least 50% of the chips. Um, Again, I've said many times, we're going to bend, we're going to break, we're whatever we're going to do. They're going to I don't know how you're going to say, hey, why don't we act like this didn't happen and we'll go back to the day before the Netherlands took over Nexperia and figure that out. Okay, go back. All right, that's what I think is going to happen. And you see here that China is signaling that the U.S. needs to drop some of its high-tech restrictions, chips, to get the raw materials to produce the high-tech chips, something that we've been pointing out for about 3 or 4 months now. Doesn't matter if you can make the chips if you don't have the rare earth minerals to make the chips, okay? Now, one of the things we talked about on the report card, we'll go back to that in a second, was that on the tariffs, I felt that how we're going to judge it. If the tariffs come in for China at equal to or less than what we put on all our allies, and I know a lot of our allies are somewhere between 15 and 25%. On all the other countries and all the penguins, we gave them 10%. All right. So they say that the Chinese have said, we want to go back to 2018 on the tariffs. So I looked it up. There were three different ways that we raised them. But in 2018, the tariff rates were at 10%. Okay. And then on January 1st, 2019, they went to 25%. And as for the chips, Trump opens the door to the NVIDIA Blackwell sales, okay? The only difference is that he said that he may do this, but these guys have to give him 20% of the revenue, but then he kind of cut it down to 15%. So let's say between 15 and 20%, but he's opening to sell them the Blackwell chip, which they have asked for. So how do you interpret this? One, rare earth minerals turns out to be, our Achilles heel. There's no way around it. And I know I'm reading everybody online. Everyone's like, this is the greatest thing. We'll do it. We're signing this agreement with Malaysia. We're signing it with Cambodia. We're signing it with Australia, with Japan. Japan gets 60% of the rare earth minerals from China because they can't process them either. Okay. So it's about processing. It's not about mining. So when you see all these things Trump's sending out there, it's all mining. Okay. Do we need to do this? Yes. Do we need to gather our allies around the world and to figure out how we can produce rare earth minerals? Absolutely. I totally applaud that. The only question I have to ask is where were we for the last 40 years? But we're here. Let's move forward. Okay. Then when you look at what's going on with the Blackwell chips. So remember, first we said you couldn't have the H20s. Then we said we'll give you a lower level H20. And then China said, we're not allowing our companies to buy H20. And we know that the Chinese have closed the gap on the H20s, okay? And so to me, I'm reading the tea leaves, it could be 1,000% wrong. It looks like to me China's saying, look, we're so close on the H20s, let's force our industry to get there on their own. Now, the Blackwells are a different story. And I believe that in the end, as I said when we did this first time 2 weeks ago, that we're going to see the Blackwell chips come in. Okay, so let's look at what is on the table here. So chips was number one, and Blackwell is going to be a yes, it looks like. The ASML machines, I said no machines, but people pointed out we are already selling them ASML machines. ASML, as we know, has said they have like 30 days left of rare earth minerals or they're not building any more machines. On the tariffs, again, we said we're going to judge it by are they going to be equal to or less than our allies? At this moment, we're 150 minus 20 for the fentanyl, which I said many times we're going to talk. 100%, that's 120, that's down to 130. And I believe that we're going to be at 10% by the time this is over. The fentanyl tariffs are gone. The soybeans we're going to buy, all right? And then on the batteries, you have to understand something. This 1 year is so that our commercial companies can get rare earth minerals. It is not for dual use or for our military industrial complex. We have limited ability there. I am sure we're going to pump that up as fast as we can, but that's what's going on. The build in the USA, they actually asked for, we turned them down. But all I'll say is go look at the news today and yesterday in Europe, okay? The Europeans, I think, are getting ready to cut a deal to bring in the car companies to take over their plants and start building the cars in Europe, which is, what I think. And notice Canada, they're going to do the same thing. So I don't know how that's going to happen. We're going to give them the jet engines, okay, for sure. The BIS, the Nexperia issue, I think is going to go away. We're going to cut that down. That's Lutnick. Lutnick is a economic nationalist, a China hawk. They're going to take him out, all right? The port fees, they've already said they're going to go away, all right? But nothing said about REM scientists, machines, and factories, which I think is critical to our success. And I found this the other day. These are PhD programs at universities. You can see we're not even in the game. So we don't have the expertise. We don't have the power. We don't have the technology. 1 year is not enough. As I said, we need 5 minimum, probably 10. What do you think? Like and follow.